You're watching Grassroots Resistance Collective, Texas grown, people powered, and unapologetically bold. We expose corruption, amplify real candidates, and give voters the truth the system tries to bury. No spin, no sellouts, just resistance. Let's get to work.
Good Saturday evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this special Grassroots Resistance Collective Live. We had a forum set up this weekend, a THC and cannabis forum set up in Denton, Texas. But obviously, the weather and SNOWMAGEDDON 2026 has hit us. So we had to turn back around. We are all back in our respective homes. I'm in San Antonio, Chastity's in Amarillo, Rannon's up in Waco, and then we have our plethora of guests today from all over Texas. Chastity, Rhiannon, how are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Cool. We were diehards to get this little policy conference off the ground, so here we are. Some special guests today.
Soldiering through.
That's right.
Because that's how we roll. So yeah, the regulation didn't stop, rulemaking didn't stop, and neither did the people that are affected by it. So we're just going to keep on trucking.
So we're here with Sid Miller. We've been talking. I've talked to Sid Miller a few times now, and he's one of the supporters of our industry. And I really feel like he can help us out here in the hemp industry with some of the stuff that we have going on, be a voice, a little beacon of light for us, an advocate. And let's hear from you, Sid.
Well, good evening. Good to be with everyone. It is a kind of a frosty day. It's 15 at my house here in Stephenville right now, and it's dropping, so it's going to get a lot worse. Snow and sleet, the highways are iced over. So it looks like it's going to be this way through Tuesday. So we're down for the count. I've been making the best of it. I made steak soup today. I harvested my cabbage, and I made sauerkraut. Made some boiled cabbage and fried some French fries and tallow. So rendered some tallow. So I've been busy. I don't know how much longer I can stay busy, but we'll see what happens. So everybody wants to know where we are on the hemp. The Texas Department of Agriculture, we wrote the hemp rules back, I believe it was 2019 for our first crop. My goal was to have them written in time for everybody to plant, and that it was quite an ordeal. We didn't get the legislation enacted from the legislature until September 1st. We didn't get full implementation from the USDA until like December. So we kind of jumped through hoops, and the day we were going to roll out our hemp program, they kicked us out of our building. COVID hit at the same time. So it was quite a challenge, but I'm proud to say I've got some good people working for me. We did implement the hemp program. We got up and running so we could plant our first crop in 2019. So not knowing a lot about hemp myself, but being a farmer and a rancher, and I've probably grown, over 20 or 30 traditional crops, plus over 200 horticulture crops. I decided if I'm going to promote the hemp industry, I need to become a hemp farmer. So I planted my first crop. I grew 3 total crops. It was for flower, not industrial hemp. So I grew a variety called Sweet Wife was my best one. I tried 2 or 3 others, but that's the one that I finally settled on. Of course, if everybody knows, if you're in the hemp growing business, that farmers is its own worst enemy. We grew too much. We were too good at what we do, and had too much product, and it just didn't become profitable. So I still have some hemp product, but I'm no longer growing hemp. I have moved on. I'm going to leave that up to the professionals. So we do have a change in the hemp industry. I think at one time, I issued that first year about 1,600 licenses. We're down to now about 450 or less. A lot of people have gotten out of the flower end of it, the CBD growing. There's just so much out there that there's not a market for it. But we have about somewhere around 10 to 15,000 acres of hemp that we never had before. and it's up around Wichita Falls. It's industrial hemp. There's a company up there has put in the North America's largest industrial hemp processing facility. It's called Panda Bio. I've toured their plants, quite an operation, and farmers can farm it with, one man can farm, a whole section, 640 acres, cut it and bale it like hay and haul it to the plant. So it works for traditional farming a lot better than harvesting the flower. I grew 3 acres and I had 2 full-time employees plus myself. So it's quite a little different dynamic. So I think that's the way that the hemp industry is going right now. Is the trend is to really get into the industrial hemp. There's a great demand for those products, from building materials to cloth, upholstery products, you name it.
What do you feel about protecting the hemp farmers and the full spectrum whole plant kind of extraction process that leaves you on the agricultural processes side, that gives Texas farmers the opportunity to be able to fit into a regulated market with THC beverages and stuff like that, where how it looks like the way that even the guy you're running against would like to send us back into a prohibition and basically really just push that narrative on the ag appropriations bill that might actually get extended for 30 years. You know what I mean? And let us have our free market and do it correctly. We're not asking for a bunch of synthetics or anything like that, because we don't even have the capacity to make that stuff here. And we're focusing on like the full spectrum stuff.
Well, we have to be careful. We're going to wreck a lot of family-owned businesses that have, these people have invested their entire life savings. In many cases, we have over 6,000 of these businesses that have become quite profitable. A lot of them have a very loyal clientele that want and need their products. I'd discussed this back during the legislative session when the Senate was trying to, just basically ban the whole process. I expressed myself. My opponent, you're right. He's basically a teetotaler. He would go the route of prohibition. He's said that in his very first interview. He's kind of becoming more of a politician. He's getting a little wishy-washy on it now. He says he might consider, some medical products, but far as what we got now, he's not in, and never will be a friend to the hemp industry. Certainly not like I've been, and that y'all, you need somebody that understands the industry. I think I understand it. We wrote the rules. I've actually farmed it myself. I kind of know what the product will do. We've got so much research out there now of the good attributes of the hemp and CBD and everything that it cures and helps relieve the,
I don't like to say
a lot of problems.
So one of the things that we kind of skipped over in the very beginning here was the reason that we were actually doing this forum is one of the threats that we have in Texas right now is the dishes rulemaking that's going on right now. So can you tell us who you think is going to be affected by that? What the enforcement versus regulation is for that specifically, and what you think will happen what is the impact on the farmers and the producers if these rules get pushed through this way? And do you support them the way they're written?
Well, no, I think they're probably a little too harsh. This is probably driven by, upper management, as we like to say in Austin, the governor, lieutenant governor, whoever you want to point to, Senator Perry obviously is involved pushing this through the bureaucracy. If they couldn't get it passed and signed into law, the governor wouldn't do that. So they're trying to do an end around and completely shut down the industry. We'll see. It doesn't look very positive. I'll say that right now, but your industry is very strong. I think you're doing a good job. We'll know. I'm not sure exactly what the deadline is, but it's pretty quick. Does someone know what the
With Monday.
Final date for
Monday.
adoption is Monday.
Mhm.
Well, that's for the comments.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Proposed
adoption is Monday, yes.
I don't think they've actually set an adoption of the rules time. I know you have to take the rules and then, if I remember right, you have to wait 60 to 90 days before you publish the final rules. So, we'll see. I'd like to get the people, on here's feedback and I'd like to know what y'all are probably watching it really, really close. I'm watching it, but probably not as close as the ones that affects their everyday walk and daily livelihoods.
Yeah.
And we like to chime in on that.
I was fixing to say maybe Heather would probably be best person right this second.
Sure. Well, Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us and for all of the work you've done to help establish the foundation for the hemp industry and the support that you've lent not only to the hemp side of things, which you're directly responsible for, but I know that you've made positive comments about patients having safe and legal access to medical cannabis as well. And I appreciate that we're going through kind of a transition time where cannabis used to be very taboo. People didn't really want to talk about it, certainly not loud enough for others to hear. And now we have statewide elected officials like yourself, Governor Abbott, coming out and vetoing a prohibition bill, establishing the executive order for regulations and better enforcement. So it's exciting to see how things have evolved in Texas and the work that's been done. Of course, there's more work to do. We see, as you mentioned, the rules not ideal, the ones that have been proposed. Certainly, the Department of State Health Services has been getting an earful from the people who these rules are going to directly affect. Not only the businesses, but the many Texas consumers who enjoy these products responsibly and who want to remain having access to them. So thank you for your work and, of course, all the advocates who continue to make sure that our government is hearing from us and that they can help make the best decisions possible as we move forward in establishing and maintaining a legal marketplace for cannabis in Texas.
Well, thank you. And I'll just say, give you a little advice, even though it's unsolicited, but keep in mind that agency that's going to write these rules and adopt them, they operate under the direction of the governor. So instead of directing all your comments toward that agency, if you could put some, a little bug in the governor's ear. He's been a friend to the industry before, but those people over there are appointed by the governor. He can take them out just as fast as he put them in. So I'm sure that they're in consultation with the governors to how to move forward. So, I just don't want you to forget that angle. The governor he's the final decision maker in this.
That's probably some pretty that. While we have you, Heather, can you tell us kind of where the current rules are, like those rules that you were speaking of that you don't think are good? Where are we diverging from the evidence based form as far as the science of it, the criminal justice part of it, patients, and then what are the unintended consequences of all of those things?
Mm-hmm. Well, with the rules that have been proposed, there certainly are good aspects, and we all know about the bad aspects. So first, let's make sure we recognize that we appreciate the Department of State Health Services setting up a more robust regulatory infrastructure to protect young people with age restrictions, to make sure that the marketing and packaging for products are child resistant and not unreasonably appealing to minors. They also have a couple really great provisions for consumer protection that we saw in some legislation during the legislative session relating to consumer complaints. So we're tracking adverse effects when there are bad products on the market. We want to know about it. And we also want recall mechanisms in place so that products can be pulled from the market if they're causing harm. These kinds of standards are in place for other industries, and most certainly we would want to see those here in the hemp industry. Now, as far as the bad provisions, the outrageous licensing fees jumping from $150 to $20,000 for retailers, $25,000 for manufacturers. I mean, completely outrageous and unreasonable. the registration fees, the licensing fees should go to cover the cost of regulation. It shouldn't be punitive in order to shut down an industry that they couldn't shut down legislatively, because lawmakers and the governor know that Texans like these products. They're consuming them responsibly and should be allowed to continue doing so, of course, when we're talking about responsible adult use. And so those are some of the bad provisions that are one of the bad provisions. The other one is very questionable to me. Now, I'm not an attorney, but the total THC restriction, meaning that they're no longer just going to be restricting Delta 9 THC, they're going to restrict all THC molecules. That is in contradiction to state law. I don't know how the department thinks that they can restrict businesses from selling otherwise legal products. And so I think that we may see some challenges to that. Hopefully they roll that back after hearing the flood of public comment. But we know that there are going to be significant negative consequences to public health and safety if we push consumers back to the illicit market. Consumers prefer to purchase safe and legal products. We've seen that with the success of the legal hemp industry. And if we're going to be restricting the amount of THC in hemp flower that naturally grows from the earth, it seems like the most reasonable product to keep, because it is so close to the earth. If they're going to be unreasonably restricting that, again, they're going to send these folks to the illicit market, where there certainly are no age restrictions, there are no safety standards, and there's no accountability when something goes wrong. We're safer when cannabis and hemp products are legal. And I hope that the Department of State Health Services comes away with that, because people are enjoying these products, they're benefiting from these products. We hear so often the success stories of folks using cannabis as an alternative to pharmaceutical drugs that we know to be dangerous and addictive a lot of times. People want that natural alternative. The hemp industry is providing that to the tune of multi-billion dollars. And we know that there is a path forward through effective regulation and enforcement of those rules. For years, we've seen a lack of enforcement. And now we want to move forward with better regulations that are enforced fairly and reasonably. The final thing I want to mention is, we have elections coming up, and the legislative session should have consequences for lawmakers who pass or try to pass bad policies. So the primary is coming up in March. I encourage everyone to contact the candidates who seek to represent you in the Texas legislature in 2027. Find out where they stand on this issue. Mobilize your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues. Make sure that they are hearing from their constituents and they know firmly where they stand and where they're expected to go if they're sent to the Texas House or Texas Senate. We're going to be talking about this and a lot more at our Texas Cannabis Policy Conference next weekend, which is sold out in person, but it is going to be live streamed. So I want to encourage everyone to join us live streaming the conference next weekend if you aren't already registered to join us in Austin.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
Brianna, can I say something really quickly? Because Heather made a really important point. And that is, the lawsuit that Andrew Steele and I first brought for Hometown Hero, which was just argued at the Supreme Court, basically tried to do, undo exactly what the Department of Health is doing now. It doesn't seem to me as if the proponents of these rules have learned their lesson yet, which is it's up to the legislature and the governor to redefine what hemp is, not the department.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to bring that point to your well-made point.
I was fixing to ask you.
Well,
I was like,
and if I could, and if I can add, the Department of State Health Services does have the authority to amend the Controlled Substances Act. There is a path for them to do that, but they need to do it correctly. They didn't do it correctly in 2021. And through these rules, they're also not doing it correctly. So we have to make sure that there's this element of government accountability also that's bigger than just the cannabis policies that they're enacting, but the very process by which they govern all of us. This is so important, whether it's cannabis or any other issue, that our government is working for us and doing things the way that they're supposed to.
I think it's important to note also that the commissioner and Heather pointed out that these these policies are already directed from somebody above. So obviously we had Dan Patrick, who was just steamrolling this policy back in the last session. He didn't get his way, so now they have to go. They kind of have to backdoor through us. So now they're doing it to where it's almost impossible for a regular person to just open up a business, which is contradictory to all American values, I think.
And Republican values, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I would guess any values specifically, but here, small business, hemp, I truly believe that hemp is the last free market that we have. It's the only market that hasn't been overly infiltrated by the large MSOs and corporations. We do have bigger brands and bigger manufacturers, but we still have the little guy, the person that can go open, they get their license and they can go out and they can open a business and live the American dream without having so much difficulty. And so I think we have to protect that at all costs. We have to protect that. So we're just gonna do questions because we've got David, Jay, Mark, JD, everybody that hasn't talked yet. So I'm gonna direct questions and whoever wants to answer it. So what can DISHUS legally regulate? What can they legally do? Does anybody want to answer that?
Mark, you and I
Leave that
talked
to the
about that
attorney.
earlier. You want to take a shot at that?
Well, I mean, it's outlined in the rules that they promulgated, but in certain instances, they've well overstepped their bounds, has been pointed out by David and Heather. I mean, for one, the occupational fees, they're not going to stand up under scrutiny. You can only charge an occupation that which you need to regulate that occupation. Otherwise, it's illegal in Texas law. They've clearly superseded that by leaps and bounds by increasing the fees, licensing fees by 10 to 13,000%. It's ridiculous. So that's out of bounds. And then I think the other egregious overstep is where they try and redefine hemp itself. They do not have that authority. That is purely legislative in nature. You can't promulgate that via rules. One thing I do want to correct so there's no misconception, and I don't know if any of you saw this notice earlier, and I hope I'm not stepping on any toes or anybody if you have prepared comments to make on this call, but it is possible because of the unilateral authority invested in the commissioner at HHSC. There's no governing board there. So she's, and the last name of the commissioner is Youth. She's been in position since the 3rd. She's well within her authority if she wishes to adopt the rules as written. She could do that possibly as early as Sunday. And so I've spent today talking with various people about a contingency plan if that were to happen. That doesn't mean it will happen, but as an industry, and I'm here tonight, and thank you for the gracious invitation on behalf of the Texas Hemp Business Council. So we're planning that if that should come to pass, that we can hit them with a TRO very quickly.
So, I mean, just because I guess we didn't actually do this. We all know who all of you guys are, and I just assume everybody knows who you are. Do you guys all want to go through and introduce yourselves?
I think I just did, so I'll pass to the next person and be quiet.
JD,
Jay,
do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is JD McCormick. Excuse me. My name is JD McCormick. I'm the chairman and founder of the American Healthy Alternatives Association, of which we have 12 state chapters still active. We've worked in up to 25 states and Washington, D.C. for the last several years. We're now currently working with the White House after Trump's executive order that shined a favorable light on hemp, shining the light on Congress's most recent action and asking them to fix it. So really, really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jay?
I'm Jay McGuire. I'm the executive director of the Texas Hemp Federation, a small trade group, and the political editor of Blaze News, the Texas Hemp Reporter. and work as a consultant to the industry. Also co-founder of Craft along with Rhiannon.
And then you raised your hand a second ago too. Was there something you wanted to?
I was trying to mute myself and I saw I poked the wrong button, but following up on, following up with what Mark made the point that I wanted to make. So whenever it's time for me to interject into there, I'd love to, I have a thing or two to say or ask about licensing fees really being takings and taxes, and how maybe, some of our talking points to the public and to the industry should be focused on that, because it resonates with Republicans more than almost anything else I think that we can do. Personal freedom.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, that's it.
Sorry. Well, Mark, you did bring up something interesting a second ago.
Jesse, you want me to introduce myself or?
Oh, where are you?
Oh, it's just
Yeah, go ahead, David. It's just David.
Hollywood Squares.
Yeah, Hollywood Squares. Go ahead, David.
So I'm David Sergi. I'm the founder of the Sergi Law Firm in San Marcos. We've been hemp lawyers since before even the Farm Bill. We were the first law firm to get a medical marijuana instruction in a criminal case back in a case called Stepanoff v. State. This is something near and dear to my heart. And it has been amazing to me to see how far we've come since we filed the original Hometown Hero or Sky Marketing case, and to see how these same issues have replicated themselves on a national basis. I've had the privilege of working with just about everybody on this panel other than Sid. And Sid, I'd love to be able to work with you. I love what you've done for the industry. I find a lot of the criticism that I've seen from your opponent to be really misguided and not understand that it seems to abandon key constituents of the Republican Party, including veterans and a lot of the elderly. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I appreciate working with Jay. I appreciate working with Rhiannon, and I'm so happy to support you, Chastity.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Does
Am I allowed to say it? I'm going to say it. That's Chastity Wedgeworth, and she's running for U.S. Congress.
Sorry.
No big deal.
Can't say that. CRT is nonpartisan.
It is. I am an individual supporting another individual. You too, Sid.
Jay, you and I were here at the very beginning. I'll just be frank. Jay is one who recruited me into the original Hometown Hero lawsuit. And we've seen so much, but I guess, JD, a question I have for you is, how does this fit into the national scene? Where are we in Texas and how are we perceived? Because you've got that national point of view.
So I'll tell you, we've been working in Congress for several years, and only really in the last year, obviously through Trump post-inauguration, have we been working with the White House. Now, the national impact of that veto, let's be clear, that veto and the veto effort, including all of the grassroots, the 150,000 petitions, the 9,000 handwritten letters, all of that grassroots advocacy made a lot of noise in Washington, D.C. Now, when Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell got in their fight on the Senate floor, right before the government reopened, right, the one person who stood from the Republican Party with Rand Paul was Senator Ted Cruz. And Senator Ted Cruz, in his Twitter post the next day, said states' rights was paramount to his position in supporting the hemp industry. Now, I think that speaks volumes to the national conversation. Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida vetoed a very similar bill in 2024. Georgia has hemp regulations. Tennessee has hemp regulations. South Carolina, North Carolina, Kentucky, Ohio, Missouri, all of these red states have hemp regulations. And we have to recognize that as the Republican Party takes on this issue, they've got to think about their core constituents. The reason these businesses are flourishing is because many of those same core constituents are the ones running them, right? To try and prevent some partisan debate where it becomes red versus blue, Republicans should do their very best to live and work in reality. Now, of course, this industry has its shortfalls. It can absolutely, live with some more regulation. packaging, warning labels, testing standards, all the things that we've all agreed with for many years. But to answer this question, I think as succinctly as possible, Texas is the second largest state in the country. Your state regulation is going to reverberate across all of the other states in the country. It will affect California. It will affect New York. It will affect Florida. It will affect every state in the country and how they respond to these issues year over the next several years. It's certainly helping with the White House. Trump's executive order spent more than half of that executive order talking about hemp. Hemp is paramount to the success of the broader cannabis industry as a whole, and uniquely lives primarily in red states. So we have got to address this in this broader cannabis conversation, right? With Schedule 3 for marijuana, that gives a great boon to many blue states. But hemp must be addressed for the red states, right? So we've got to kind of balance this favorability in this war between the small businesses and some of those larger corporations. So I think, honestly, Texas is a humongous state. You guys put on a heck of a fight and really showed up, did a great job, and it's being heard from Washington, D.C., East Coast to West Coast. Everybody is paying attention to you guys.
Thanks, JD. I think ultimately, what we do in the states matters. And to JD's point, if you have a state, you want to make sure that you have some thoughtful, robust regulations in place, because as recent history suggests, I think the feds are going to defer in terms of how each state wishes to regulate the product. Ultimately, that's where we'll end up. It's just a matter of getting there sooner rather than later. So each state matters. No state can fall asleep and think that it's being handled at the federal level, and everybody needs to dig in.
Jay, have you got anything to add to that? Because you've been here since the very beginning. You
I was,
predate Mark.
You know, I do have a question. I guess for the whole panel, especially for the commissioner, what would actually influence lawmakers? Because coming from an advocate of on the cannabis side, we've done everything. We've called, we've sent letters, we've gone and we've yelled at people in Austin. We've done everything we could, and it's to the point to where it's like, okay, where do we go now, other than
Where have we gone wrong?
like we're having to chase and go down these small and weird avenues, and people are just so fatigued. It's I guess it is a game, but what else can people do to get through to these lawmakers?
Well, let me just say this: don't feel down in the dumps. Hell, y'all did great. I mean, y'all stopped that. I mean, y'all got the governor's attention. You got him to veto the bill. Hell, you wouldn't even have a hemp industry if it hadn't been for the activism that y'all put out there and the ruckus y'all raised. So y'all don't sell yourself short. Y'all done a hell of a good job keeping this thing together. I think you can still win this. I mean, it just doesn't make sense why the government would take the strong position he did and then allow his appointees to do this. It just does. So I think that a lot of it needs to be directed towards the governor. I mean, it worked once. I think it could possibly work again.
Yeah, I think so too.
The bureaucrats, they just don't care. They're going to do what they're told, and they don't care about you or your business. You know, they punch the clock. They come in. They go home. I know what I'm talking about. I've got 800 of them. You know. Most of them are good people and care, but there's a lot of them that aren't. They're just there. It's a job. So, and a lot of them are not very political, and quite honestly, probably of the employees at that state agency, probably 80% of them are liberal, and they could, give the middle finger to the governor. So they don't really care. But that's true in all state agencies. You just don't find a lot of conservatives working in state government. So don't sell yourself short. Keep the heat on them. That's my advice. And I'd say keep the heat on the governor. He's the one that he controls the reign of this stagecoach. Believe me, he's driving the stage. There may be somebody else setting up or acting like it, but he's calling the shots.
For
I
sure.
think you're right, Commissioner Miller.
Public discourse, civic engagement, public participation, all of that. That's all needed. And we just got to keep on the gas. Really, we just got to keep on the gas to
Tovar,
get
I
this
was
thing
gonna
through.
say,
We have a
If I can-
deadline, and we do have, more of these, email, Abbott and DHSH, email them all, tell them what you think.
You know, I think it's
Tovar,
comes
I'm gonna
down
say
to,
something, right? You overlook the fact that we galvanized public opinion. And every time I go to one of these sessions where we are testifying, the comments are becoming more succinct, more to the point, and more effective.
Mhm.
And so rather than getting tired by keep going back and back, I don't know, personally, I get invigorated by going back and back, sharpening our messages, hearing champions like Chastity talk, hearing champions like Mark, hearing champions like Rhiannon talk and Jay talk, and a bunch of others that too numerous to mention. I think we put together a juggernaut, and I think the commissioner is right. The governor needs to hear that loud and clear, and that's where the direction of our comments need to go. Mark, I don't know what else you have to add to that.
no, I just wanted to point out, and thank you, David. I think that Commissioner Miller's spot on, and it seems to be almost a battle of the will that's ongoing with the lieutenant governor's version of how he sees hemp versus that of the governor. And clearly, dishes seems to be unduly influenced by Senate Bill 3. But I think, there's overreach there, and I would hope that the governor's team would step in and avoid any potential embarrassments in the court of law, given the oversteps. But that remains to be seen. On the other hand, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and that perhaps maybe he's welcoming a lawsuit to get it out of the legislative arena. I'm not quite sure at this point, but we just have to be prepared for whatever eventuality comes to pass. And then let me just finish by saying this, Commissioner Miller, if you need folks on the road for you again, I got Chad Wilbanks and I will volunteer. So thanks for joining tonight.
Thank you. Tell Chad I said hi, and I appreciate all he's done over the years. He's been with me from the beginning, very beginning. Yeah.
And if I can add also that, it's important to make sure we're looking at this from the big picture and with the long game in mind. It was 1915 when cannabis was first banned in El Paso, Texas. And it wasn't until 100 years later that the Compassionate Use Act was established and we have a legal marketplace for cannabis. And in short order now, we have the hemp industry, we have meaningful regulations, we have statewide elected officials taking this issue seriously. So much has happened in a very short period of time. And like somebody mentioned earlier, let's not let off the gas. Let's keep our eye on the prize down the road. Even if there are losses in these regulatory rules being established, there are lawsuits that are an option. There is the legislative session coming to make any corrections that we need to make. This is going to be an ongoing process. And you're right that the fatigue is real because it has been an exhausting year for those of us who have been in the trenches on this, no doubt about it. But we have to make sure we're training people up that have energy, that are coming in. So we're all well informed on how the process works so we can continue to pass the baton and build out the foundation of this industry. Cannabis is going to be legal in Texas forevermore. And we have to set up the foundation. And that's exactly what we're doing. These are growing pains that we're experiencing right now. Keyword growing.
Yeah.
And I look at it this way. We are like, we can beat around the bush, but it's all cannabis. Cannabis, medical marijuana, it's all the same thing. And it just comes down to there will always be room for medical. There's always room for science and understanding and isolating and formulations and stuff like that. But, let's have a ganja. If people can go out there and have a whiskey at dinner and I want to go out in the backyard and sneak a toke, that is my prerogative. I'm just going to say that right now because I'm not afraid to say it, but I love smoking weed. So, and I think I turned out all right. So, I think I'm doing okay.
I have a question from whoever wants to answer this, but who do you think is actually benefiting from the confusion of all of this? For who's responsible here? Because we have a lot of these like allegations. We heard a lot of this propaganda being spewed in the last legislation, and it's still being spewed to this day, of, you know, people getting hit by trains and things like this. And I'm not discarding that there are people that are more susceptible to having medical issues from
It's not
consuming,
for everybody. It's not for
but
everybody.
but it's not the majority.
Mhm.
And it's not like that we've got these dispos out here like with trench coats in schools asking kids what they want to buy, and that's kind of what they made it out to seem like. I remember when Dan Patrick came out with his map of all of the licenses, right? And we saw that the red dots were significantly bigger than the blue dots, but nobody said anything. And then we had like Sally's Beauty Supply and CVS
Sally's has the most
Pharmacy,
licenses, by the way.
Gbo's, tax supplies, and all of these other things are the majority of these licenses. And then very small amounts of actual dispos that are selling these things. So who is actually benefiting from this confusion?
I can take that. So we've been tracking this all over the United States for several years. Some of it's quite obvious. There's an organization called SAM. It's the Smart Approaches to Marijuana, kind of like MAD, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Its sole purpose is prohibition of cannabis, right? That organization is loud and proud. They're on Twitter, LinkedIn, they're in all the political circles. They talk nothing, not a word comes out that is positive about cannabis from them. Let's just put that out there. Then, just 2 days ago, there was a report that came out that alcohol companies are sitting on $22 billion in alcohol that is unsellable.
Mhm.
Post-COVID and post the Joe Rogan effect, pun intended there, everybody is looking to healthier alternatives, healthy options. People are using peptides to lose weight. That's going to save airlines billions of dollars of fuel. They just flipped upside down the entire food pyramid. I mean, people are looking to get healthier, and alcohol is a poison, and it is becoming a part of the American conversation that alcohol is terrible for you. And as that happens and that proliferates, market sales and market prices of alcohol are plummeting. Groups that are advantageous, seeking large PR contracts, are taking on, this negative anti-cannabis, anti-hemp, anti-marijuana rhetoric so that they make 50 million, 100 million in these large PR contracts. I'm telling you, if you go and watch the news and you go and watch some of these, or read some of these op-eds that are being written, and you go and look up some of the people writing them, they're working for large, organizations like SAM or, whatever, they're connected to alcohol, et cetera. There's no conspiracy here. It's often, I always try to use the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, right? What is the motivation? It's often money related. And if it's money related, who stands to benefit the most, right? And in this case, alcohol is experiencing a generational trend downwards. Generation Z is the lowest alcohol consuming generation in 100 years. As this trend continues, the alcohol industry wants to take over their share of this space. And in doing so, they don't care about the small businesses. They're okay with getting rid of everybody else in favor of them. And you can look at Alabama, who just passed a hemp prohibition bill that carved out drinks. You can look at Tennessee that almost banned everything except drinks, and various other states that are going through this exact same problem as we speak. So the city of Chicago just banned all hemp products except the drinks. So
JD,
not a whole lot
I
of
just wanna-
conspiracy there.
Yeah, I just want to bolster what JG just said. Coming from the alcohol industry, I spent 20 years representing Anheuser-Busch, and we used to have this old saying, and it would be denigrate it, which I would suggest that's where we are in this life cycle. Denigrate the product, then replicate it. They're all building their own versions of this, even if it's, specific to liquid forms. And then the final stage is dominate it. So once they drive the market down and devalue it, guess who's going to be jumping in and say, hey, it's okay if we do it because we know about regulation. We do this for alcohol already. We've seen that. And all these talking points, none of them are divergent from one state to another. That's how you know it's completely orchestrated. So there's big money behind it. And the folks like Sam, they don't have the money. Where are they getting the money? Well, it's being funneled to them by big alcohol and other concerns that want to see hemp devalued, if not eliminated completely.
You know, during the session last summer, I forgot who it was, but there was a representative who was complaining about how alcohol sales were down.
It
And
was
they were
Charles Perry.
was it Perry?
Yeah, he was tested. You had to testify. He was.
Yeah,
It was. Then when they were debating, he was saying, you know, nobody's buying alcohol anymore. Nobody wants to get drunk anymore like we used to.
yes, exactly. Like if that's a problem that needs to be solved. That's so
Right?
that's so crazy.
I think that illustrates exactly what part of the problem here is, that alcohol is ours and marijuana is those other people's
Mhm.
stuff. And you know, the us versus them, red versus blue, rural versus urban, we divide ourselves infinitely as human beings. And in Texas, we've got very clear distinctions what each political group is. Sorry, what each political group you know, is on the inside and is going to be looked after and is being spoken to directly, pardon me, Commissioner, by the elected officials who have to look at that Republican base and decide what they want and make sure that they hit those notes. And there are some who will do everything they can to create that body of things to go and throw out there that the voters will jump at. The reefer madness stuff is an example of that. So yeah, sure, probably to some Republican voters, the idea that drinking beer is unquestionably their right as a Texan and has been forever. And they forget that alcohol was prohibited. And by the way, because the political structure of the state responds to them. What we probably ought to be doing is looking at how we can grow our way out of that problem by building more coalitions with Red Texas. And you know, I know that this cuts across partisan divides, but if you talk to your more rightward leaning Republican voter, their assumptions and their beliefs about marijuana and THC are demonstrably false. And as they get to know people who use our products and get better with them, the veterans are the best example of this that we've used so far. Building an alliance with them was the smartest thing we could have ever done. Well, why can't we build alliances with farmers and the folks that Sid, pardon me, Commissioner, looks after in his role as Commissioner of Agriculture? Because when people have an interest, they're not much less likely to believe the stories that are, you know, exaggerated or fabricated, like the one that Chastity mentioned.
Jay, I'll tag on to that. So we talk about the right and some of the misconceptions of the right. I'll tell you, I am a God-fearing, small business, small enterprise, small government advocate every day of my life, right? But we've got an industry here that is asking for regulation. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, a good friend of mine, went and talked to him about this issue and said, the hemp industry wants a tax. And Scott Bessent laughed, kind of chuckled, real belly laugh, and said, that is the first time I have ever heard an industry come to me requesting a tax, right? Because taxation for us, right, means to solidify our industry in the history books, right? It means to regulate us and give us what we've been asking for is stability. This industry does not have stability. There aren't any publicly traded hemp companies. These are all small farmers with 2, 3, 4, 5 acres, small retail stores with just a couple thousand square feet. I mean, these are small businesses built on the backs of hardworking Americans, the salt of the earth here. It's very rare in any other industry that I've stumped for or worked for that people come to the government and say, please regulate me. I mean, that is just a strange thing. Most of the time, it's the opposite. Oh, we're already regulated too much, or don't regulate us. Don't tax us. Here's an industry that's coming out of 100 years of prohibition that's saying, give us regulation, give us taxation, give us the benefit of stability so we can invest in the future here. So pretty amazing stuff. And we saw that Texas poll from Fabrizio Lee, very similar, the very same pollster that Donald Trump uses, that showed high 60% of reliable Republican primary voters want legal hemp in the state of Texas. So not to make it too partisan, but I think that's,
And I mean,
want to tie that on there.
it all comes down to agriculture. The root is in ag, and getting that definition right. Because it's the agricultural appropriations rider that snuck in there. I mean, this is like kind of the root of everything, and defining it and getting those definitions. And I feel like as an industry, as an organization, all of us in the industry, from north to south to central Texas to wherever you are, we need to unite the industry and come up with those definitions together and push that same, agenda, because we're cannabis, we're marijuana, we're hemp, we're all the whatever you want to call it, but let's get it right, and let's protect our farmers too, because this is silly. If you have as Sid knows, if you grow something, if I take a seed and I grow it up in Humboldt County, and then I take it and I grow it down somewhere else where it gets really hot, it's going to be a completely different plant, how it grows, and it's going to have different levels of cannabinoids and THC and everything. And it's a remarkable plant, and there's a lot to learn about it, and there's always room for medical, but we just need to, we're getting there. We're getting closer.
So we've got a lot of experts on here tonight. Is there anybody, or all of you each individually, can you guys tell the small businesses and the consumers what they need to be preparing for? Or is just whoever?
Well, I will say this, that, I represent a broad cross section. I represent one of the largest brands of pre-rolls. I represent a whole broad cross section, and it goes all the way down to small business and mom and pop shops. And what I've been telling them is it's going to be a wild ride. It could be a wild ride as early as Sunday. My understanding is that we've got two groups. Mine is one, and there's another group that I think Mark's working with that are going to be prepared and have a lawsuit drafted for the rules as written. We're going to have to litigate. If that happens, we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and keep our head down. And first of all, keep doing what we're doing as long as we can legally do it. We have good, strong advocates, people like JD, whose tentacles go straight to the White House, who's working at the White House. We have advocates for us, but don't be scared. If the rules come out, then they come out, and we'll be litigating. We beat them once, we can beat them again. So, as I said earlier at the very outset, we just had this argument in the Texas Supreme Court. Amanda did a great job arguing for us, and listening to the judge's questions, it certainly seemed like, and that can always be misleading, but it certainly seemed like we had a really good shot at winning that case, because, as I don't know who pointed out, this is bigger than hemp. This is how we as Texas are regulated by our government. And you can't just willy-nilly go regulate without doing it within the confines of, number one, our laws, and even more importantly, our Constitution.
Yeah. I would just say, businesses. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
I'm going to make one more comment, and then I've got two early TV interviews in the morning I need to prep for. But if those rules come out Monday, what that tells me is the fix was in from day one. Yeah. Taking the comments didn't mean a damn thing. They never were going to look at them and listen to them. They knew when they started what they were going to do. So kind of keep that in mind. If they take 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and they legitimately go through and try to weigh the pros and the cons and see what, how they can incorporate some of the good ideas, maybe take out some of their bad ideas, then you've done something. But if they just adopt the rules, don't feel defeated. You never were in the game to begin with. They weren't going to consider anything. So with that, I'll answer any more questions, and then I'm going to get on my other projects tonight.
Before you leave, do you have anything else that you want to say to any of the viewers or anybody that will be watching this later?
Well, I tell you what, I'm running for reelection. I could use your support. I need your vote. I'll tell you this. Let me just tell you this. This office, this bunch is not all that political, but you are now. You've been drug into it. You don't have a choice. This office in the past has been a political stepping stone to a higher office. No one's ever took the job of ag commissioner as a full-time job. It was Rick Perry. He held the office while he was running for lieutenant governor. Susan Combs held this office while she was running for comptroller. Todd Staples, he wanted to be lieutenant governor, was unsuccessful. I'm a different cat. I mean, I'm the ag commissioner. I don't want to be anything else. I get up and my goal for the day is to be the best ag commissioner Texas has ever had. I mean, I put 100% into it. I'm not campaigning for something else. So keep that in mind. This other guy that's running against me, he has no agriculture background, no agriculture education. In his speeches, he refers to beef as cattle meat. He refers to ranchers as cattle persons. He says the FFA doesn't teach anything about agriculture. He's just not there. He's just not there.
Prohibitionist.
And your industry, he hates. I mean,
Mhm.
absolutely. He's had nothing good to say about the hemp industry. Nothing. So
Well, you
keep
get
that
a
in
good cigar
mind.
out of him.
I appreciate the tenacity and the hard work and the dedication that all y'all are putting into your profession. So
Well,
keep it up. Don't get discouraged. Just keep fighting. There's only two ways you lose. And that's if you give up or you run out of money. So try not to do either one.
Well, you got to have money to run out of it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So I think we're good there.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you
sir.
so much
Appreciate you.
All
And
right.
we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
We really
Thank y'all. God bless you. Keep up the good work.
Thanks,
thank
Sid.
you,
Thanks,
sir.
sir.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Tell Corey.
I think it's important also to add to the commissioner that he doesn't have to do any of the things that he's done for the cannabis industry. He could just completely abandon it if he wants to. If we put in the other guy, if the other guy gets in, he doesn't have to do shit, and then everything we've done is just completely irrelevant. Because I mean, the governor and lieutenant governor could potentially get their way, through administrative paperwork. So Sid Miller is definitely the guy that we want in there. If you're on Team Cannabis, for sure.
Well, we can't say that. We can't say that PRC because we don't endorse candidates, but because there are other candidates that are running against him, but he, as far as hemp
On the primary ticket.
he is pro hemp.
Yeah.
The other person that is primarying him is anti-hemp. So we do have a question on our chat. So Wildcard Illusion says, we've seen where they technically could come to a decision by Sunday. Do we expect that to be the case? Are there any indications or signs?
Jay or Mark, you guys.
I don't think that there's any way to. So yeah, Mark had pointed out in a post he made earlier today, and he's off camera, so I'm just going to paraphrase the provision in the Health and Human Services Code that gives executive commissioner the authority to adopt the rule as a power of the office. And so what Commissioner Miller pointed to is that there may be more of a deliberative process ahead of them if they are taking those comments into account. And so the only clue that we would have available to read is really just time. If they come out, with they publish the rules in the register and announce that this is it. What Commissioner Miller said is the case, but I really feel like the veto pen is still smoking, and these rules aren't what Governor Abbott kind of laid out in his executive order. So I feel like the agency has probably been responding to their, political masters. Look, the governor appoints the executive commissioner, but the lieutenant governor has a huge amount of power in Texas, and including everything that goes through the Senate is under his direct control, including the appropriations for every agency.
And they're
One
up for
lever
sunset
of
review as
control.
well. Yeah,
So-
they're up for sunset, Jay. So
What's that?
they're also up for sunset
Yeah,
review.
That's
So
just
you've
where
got
I was going to go with it.
appropriations
Right.
and sunset review, and you've got the lieutenant governor weighing in, you've got Senator Perry weighing in,
Yep.
and they're contravening that executive order, that emergency executive order. So the point is, because it's an emergency, they don't even have to post to the register. They can just adopt it. So if you look back and look at what TABC did earlier, they just went ahead and adopted it effective the next day. So conceivably that could happen again. But to Commissioner Miller's point, if they do that, he said the fix is in. I would suggest they're inviting a lawsuit. They know there's going to be a lawsuit at that point. There's no way they can move forward, receiving those public comments with all the legal challenges laid out and the violations of existing code and the Constitution, that they would move forward. And yet, obviously, it's an inherently political process. So I guess the point, the takeaway is, if it should come to pass that they try and slam dunk it, obviously we move to litigation. We're planning for that. And back to what Heather said, this is the long slog. I mean, you've got one injunction that's lasted 5 years. David Sergi referred to it, the Sky Marketing case that's been going on for 5 years. So this isn't going to be rectified or solved in any short order. We've got to be in it for the long haul. And as Commissioner Miller pointed out, that takes money. So, what we're proposing moving forward would be, a big tent type of thing, and everybody has to work together, because just again, not to beat a dead horse, but if we don't win here, it doesn't matter what really happens at the federal level.
Jay, you were
I think it would be very hard to justify a 20,000% increase in a fee when the statute gives the agencies the authority to create a fee to run a program. It's unjustifiable. That looks like, please sue me. So Mark, I agree with you 100%. But they still have, so putting that in there, it looks like it ostensibly satisfies the political directives that the lieutenant governor wants. That's the point I was trying to make. And I agree with you 100%. We've won before. And we continue winning in the legal challenges. Amanda did an amazing job in Sky Marketing the other week. I sat in the audience. She was sitting next to Craig Enoch, who worked with me on another matter, a former Supreme Court justice who's on our side, sitting next to our lawyer. And the state couldn't find more banana peels to slip on. So we keep winning because we're right on the facts. And I think that, the process available to us is in the courts. We should sue.
You had mentioned earlier that the veto pen might still be smoking. So is there any office, or does anybody have any actual power or authority over dishes, or what they can and can't do?
Cover, I think the reason I said that is that what I see is that the governor's laid out a pretty clear set of instructions, right? And they were not to go, full metal jacket into destroying the industry, but that's what these rules do. So what that tells me is that I'm the commissioner, and I've got a governor who I'm responding to and a lieutenant governor who I'm responding to. Mark's point is, they've got to do both of those things, but one of the ways to do that is to make it so bad and so obviously unconstitutional that there will be a suit. So in that sense, I think that's what we're getting.
Got it.
Yeah, just to tag along there from prior experience here in Florida, when Governor DeSantis wrote his veto letter, it was a clear sign that he supports hemp. The following legislative session, 6 months later, 8 months later, I don't want to say it went smoothly, but it went much smoother than it had the year prior, obviously. The negative hemp bill didn't end up passing, but it was a sea change in the political dynamic between the committee chairs, the Speaker of the House, the Senate President. Everybody was taking a much more, what I would call, professional look at the industry, rather than thinking it's just being sold in an alleyway out of the trunk of someone's car. They actually respected the professionalism of the industry and tried their best to produce good regulation. So even today, in communicating with Florida state senators or Florida state reps, the veto pen is still smoking, right? That veto reverberated and has been reverberating for more than 18 months. So yeah, it definitely matters. And one statistic I would give you is elected officials in the United States on average see 3,000 issues a year, 3,000 individual issues, right? What kind of material is your roofing tile made out of? How much chlorine can you put in your pool? What's the speed limit in the school zone? All of these various and complex issues, the average elected officials are seeing this, just day after day after day. We have to remind the governor. We have to go back and get back in front of him and be loud and proud about our industry and make sure that we remind him we're still here.
So I have something that I want to add to that, but I have a question from a comment from somebody that's on our YouTube right now. Kingstone Farms 420 says, so in other words, an agency or committee cannot overrule the legislation. So I think what they're asking is, does DSHS have the legal capability of writing the rules?
No.
It's a great question.
Outside of
It's a great question, because the agency can't go beyond the authority the legislature gives it. The law is that THC at 0.3% or below is legal hemp in Texas. And an agency can't just by the adoption of a rule overturn the law. Neither can, so the legislature would have to change it, but they can try, and then they can fail in front of the court. That's the consequence. That means we have to be standing up and ready to go.
But the crazy thing is that they just end up playing poker with the taxpayers' money. They have to defend something that they know is indefensible, and that's a waste of money, which we should capitalize on in any of our media moving forward. That's if they move forward with the existing rules. But Jay's exactly right. They don't have that. They do the finer brush strokes. The legislature does the bold, big picture. And the state agencies that have oversight over any given industry then move in and then do the regulations, but they have to comport and comply with that enabling legislation. So they can't do their own thing.
Mark, I was always told that it's sort of like a paint by numbers. The legislature gives you the canvas with the outlines, and then those outlines are important, but then the administrators and bureaucrats fill in the color, but they can't change the outline. And that's where we're at.
That's exactly where we're at. Yes, exactly.
So
I go back to what you found originally when you found that Dishes back in 21 had posted the change that we litigated in Sky Marketing in a non-text searchable PDF.
That's right.
That nobody knew.
That's right. I mean, if you want to adopt a rule that prevents people from doing something that's otherwise legal, and they're going to show up with expert witnesses, and you're going to get a lot of heat from consumers, and you're going to get thousands of phone calls. One way to avoid that is to do a 6-minute Zoom call and don't tell anybody ahead of time in a way that's practical. So they buried it. And I think the district court saw that as unmistakably the wrong way to go about adopting a rule. So Dishes has been dirty before, and they just need to be washed. When our government is acting in a way that's not transparent, it doesn't obey its own open government rules that exist for the purpose of preventing these kinds of things from happening, and looking at the self-interest of politicians who are lining up in favor of industries that support them financially or for which they think they're going to get a stake in, then those laws exist to prevent that from happening. Yeah.
So one of the things that we saw during SB3 during the legislative time was we have there's a bunch of people that are doing a bunch of things, and we're all essentially doing the same thing, but we're kind of doing it in a separate way. And the whole reason that craft exists is for the same reason that what we saw in SB3. So at the end of SB3, when everybody kind of pulled together and we were all doing the same exact thing, moving in the same direction. And what I'm talking about is the QR code specifically that went to that letter that we were having, we had every store was doing it, every customer was doing it, people were taking it to their friends, we were sending it in text message threads. We had social media content creators all making the same content about it. Everybody was moving in the same direction. And I think that that's really, if what we did actually stopped SB3, then it was because we collectively moved together. And so the whole point of craft is to get everyone to non-compete. We don't want anybody competing because we're all doing the same thing for the same reasons, right? And we just want everybody to be able to have this space where they can say, this is what we're doing. I think the biggest thing, I owned a store for 7 years, and it was very hard for me to know how to move, right? What am I supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to be advocating if I had some direction? And so that's what people are looking for, and that's what they're looking for from you guys, right? Is because you guys are the leader. We're all the leaders in this industry. And so everybody needs direction. We need somewhere to push. We need to be able to tell these, manufacturers and distributors, hey, pass this along, this information onto your stores so that your stores can pass it on to your consumers, and we can all continue moving in this same direction. If that were something that it is something that we're trying to do tonight, obviously, because we're all here. What do you think that we need to move on next? Because we do have a letter going for, everybody sending in their public comment to dishes. Do you guys agree with us also moving on to the governor as well? Like Sid said, do you think that that's something we need to start working on as well?
As a matter of process,
I think that's a great idea. And then also communicating with lawmakers. Each of them, as an elected official, have a channel of communication to regulatory agencies. And we should make sure our lawmakers know what's going on so that they can take action and ask the right questions if they're interested in doing so. And we, of course, hope that they will be. So definitely contacting the governor, definitely contacting your legislators, and leveraging this election cycle. I can't overstate the importance of us taking advantage of this time that we have between now and the next legislative session. These candidates are out there looking for your vote. They're looking for your money, and we need to make sure that they know what it's going to take. Is some real firm stances on appropriate legislation for the cannabis industry. And that means, holding regulators accountable, passing laws to correct course when things go wrong, and making sure that we're adhering to the principles that so many of us talk about: free markets, individual liberty, personal responsibility. Make sure that they know that this all ties in, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent. There are good reasons for all of us to support a legal and well-regulated marketplace.
Yep.
I just want to bolster what Heather said as far as the upcoming election. The primary election in Texas is March the 3rd, and it's an open primary. So if you don't like a particular lieutenant governor candidate, let's say you're a Democrat, it doesn't matter. You cross over and you can vote in that Republican primary, and you should vote in that Republican primary. So people got to put the partisanship down and move forward to protect this industry and cross over and make sure they vote in that particular election more than any other. Send a very strong message.
Yes.
Because the Republicans, so we have to explain this in a way where everybody understands, but the reality here is that Texas is predominantly Republican led. And so that's who's going to be in office. Whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, if you don't want the Republican to have a seat, if you want to take that Republican out of his seat, then you have to vote for the person that is primarying them so that they're on the ballot, the general ballot, in November of this year. And then you can cross over, you can go back and forth. In the general, you don't have to vote just Republican and just Democrat. You can choose across the ballot. But what he's saying is that's a good strategy to use your vote uniquely, is to be able to vote in the Republican primaries.
Everybody should be
And if I can
voting
add
in that
another thing
primary.
also, is with the elections, we also have the political party conventions coming up in the summertime. This is where each political party identifies who their state officers are going to be, what their platform is going to be, and their rules. The platform is basically a statement of issues and where they stand on various issues. And over the years, a lot of work was done between 2014 and 2020 to get cannabis into the Republican Party platform. It was already in Democrats. We worked on strengthening that. Of course, the Libertarians long been on board, but getting the Republican Party officially on board, first with hemp in 14, then with medical cannabis in 16, and then decriminalization in 18. And in 2020, what a crazy year that was. And unfortunately, the prohibitionists came out in force when a lot of folks weren't showing up to the convention because of COVID, and they wiped out a lot of what was in that platform. There is still good opportunity, not only to get the platform to where it's positive to cannabis in a good way, but also because this is a grassroots process that builds up to a state convention. It starts out in your neighborhoods at precinct conventions. People can go and introduce resolutions, which gets you in front of your neighbors and all of the actively engaged people, politically engaged people in your neighborhood. You can introduce a resolution, multiple resolutions on the different cannabis issues, get it talked about. And if it gets adopted, it advances to the county level convention, where again, you're talking in front of hundreds of people in your county that are very politically active about cannabis policy. And then the resolutions adopted there advance to the state level. So this is an excellent opportunity to get this issue in front of the people who are most politically engaged. That includes lawmakers, their staffers, their consultants, everyone that operates in that political world. And it's free to show up. It's free to participate. We always want to put our best foot forward, being professional, being well prepared, creating good arguments. But this, again, is an excellent opportunity during this time between now and the next session to make an impact on the direction of the conversation. And we are winning. There is no doubt about that. We are winning this thing. Even when there are setbacks, we are still, for this long game, we're winning. And this is the work that's going to help get us where we want to go during the next session.
Thank you, Heather. Yeah. Would love to push that message more on the craft platform too, and get more people involved and give them the tools and resources. In case you guys don't know who I am, my name is Rhiannon, and I am a super nerd, and I do weird technology and love data, and built a learning management system. And so basically, it's a place where we can implement the rules and train our humans. And because 90% of the time it's a human error when it comes to anything that goes wrong in a shop or anything like that. So, and TABC with these licenses unleashed, I'll tell you right now, if they don't have the necessary training and tools, people are gonna have problems. So getting people trained on milligrams and understanding cannabinoids and serving drinks. I have a friend that actually went to a bar and got herself a THC beverage and didn't realize it was 50 milligrams, entered the hospital. And she normally can drink a 5 milligram breeze and be fine. And this one was just sent her, and got her whole nervous system. And it's like you can have TABC take over the beverage part, but if people don't know what they're serving or how to train their staff, there's going to be some problems. And so implementing these rules is so important. And, I would love to get more of the industry involved. I do have a nonprofit that I created as like a think tank, and I want industry leaders involved in that think tank. It's Nick Mortello is on it, and Jay McGuire, and we're trying to figure out, all right, let's keep going and kind of, launch it, because I want everybody involved. Like, I don't want to do all the work anymore. Everybody, cultivators, we got distributors, we got manufacturers who can help implement, GMP or put cool videos in there or whatever. We have a really great platform. And if you haven't taken the THC handler certificate course, it is it's very comprehensive. It's good. It'll train your staff. And I just want to help. I just want the industry to thrive and survive. I have been in this industry a decade now. I come from California. owned numerous licenses and cultivation and help write every SOP you can think of. So, and we're going to keep growing and learning and moving this industry forward, and having those tools and resources for the rest of us is very important. So that's my my bit. And
I want to add on to Rhiannon's piece here. When we started talking back during the legislative session, I was explaining to her that in the work that I've done, some with David, in defending the businesses that have been raided unfairly and treated, you know, sort of like the sacrificial victims of the reefer madness crowd, defending ourselves as an industry against false accusations is one thing, but preventing us from making mistakes that in other more mature industries are more easily avoided because they're better onboarding and better training programs and a sort of a standard set of best practices that everybody understands and agrees to. And we're not a regulated industry in the sense that people have not had, you know, the same kind of bartenders all get the same training and they have a license. They have the TABC certification. It would have been great if our industry had had the ability to adopt this 2 or 3 sessions ago. And then, you know, we would have had an answer for Senator Perry when he says that we're not trustworthy enough to self-regulate. That's what craft is there for. It's partly to provide, to elevate the industry and all of the people that work with us and protect consumers by getting them better information. And at the same time, you know, give our advocates in the Capitol a lot more to work with when, you know, the prejudices and negative, the lies that have been told about us can be proved baseless. And we can also show them that we're responsive to the concerns that they've got, because it's fair to be worried about 50 milligram drinks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I talked to your friend Rhiannon. That's ridiculous and outrageous. And that would be like handing a teenager a bottle of Everclear and thinking that they're going to be okay. That's not right. And having in a state with good regulations, and in a future Texas when we have good regulations, that's not going to happen again. But right now we don't have enough. So being a little bit more detailed on how industry can look after our own side of the street is part of the purpose of craft, as well as giving people a more of a organized way to participate.
And I want everybody's feedback. Like I said, that's, you know, if you are interested in, you know, syncing up with us in a Green Sync or a Green Shield Alliance, I would love to hear from all you guys and kind of get a real board of directors or whatever you guys call it. That would be my first nonprofit, and get that going. And you know, business plans there. So, and I'm not a lobbying team on that part. This is to feed the knowledge. You know, it's the knowledge portal. So, thank you guys. I think everybody's getting ready to.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I got to talk about, you know, what we do a little bit and the purpose. And how about Sid Miller? I was like, we need more Sid Millers right now.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm glad we were able to do that. Y'all want to go ahead and wrap it up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any last words to say? I know, Heather, you've got something that's coming up this summer. Is it this summer? When is it? Or it's like in
Well, the summer is when the political conventions are, and on our website, texascannabispolicy.org, under the resources tab, there's elections and conventions. It walks you through that process. And of course, we're going to try to stay up to date along the way and make sure that everyone knows opportunities for engagement as we move forward. We're also hosting a big policy conference next weekend at UT Austin's Thompson Conference Center. We are bringing together policymakers, legal experts, regulators from other states to see what we can learn. We're very proud to have Representative Drew Darby, who was on the House State Affairs Committee that helped to overhaul SB 3, turning it into a regulatory bill. So he's got quite a story to tell about the work that they did on that committee, as well as Senator Nathan Johnson, who has been a real leader in the Senate. But we're excited to be hosting a sold out event. We do have a live stream option available thanks to Maverick PR. They are recording videos, so all the content will be available. We want to make sure that it is an educational resource more than just the event and the networking, which is going to be fantastic. We want this information to be available to those who can benefit from it. So TexasCannabisConference.org is the website for that, and we definitely welcome folks to tune in for the live stream. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And again, commending your ability to adapt and overcome. Of course, the weather's got us all hunkered down at home now, but being able to host this event with a bunch of great folks to have this meaningful conversation means a lot, and I appreciate you including me.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you, Heather.
Thanks,
And
Heather. Your conference is just so substantive and well put together, well run. I always look forward to it.
Thank you. Well,
And
I
I'm
need,
putting those links into the chat, so they will be below the video in the chat, you guys.
awesome. We'll talk soon. Thank you, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
It was great to
Thanks,
see everyone.
everyone.
It was
Thank you.
great participating with you guys. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Yeah.
And
Appreciate it.
nice to finally meet you, JD.